All right, so hello everyone. You have joined Gridley's virtual launch on the topic, the future of game localization. People are still joining, but we'll get started in just a moment. In the meantime, maybe, we're curious to know which countries are represented on this webinar. So while we are waiting, maybe drop your country in the chat and we'll see where we are represented today. So, Mike, where are you calling from?
Just outside London. So I'm in the UK. There's a very famous developer just up the road called Splash Damage. So I'm a short walk from those guys.
So then it's afternoon coffee for you and not morning coffee.
Absolutely. Always coffee first.
Always coffee. How about you, Christoffer?
Oh, I'm in Helsingborg, Sweden, the southern part of Sweden, close to Denmark.
Yeah, and I'm also in Sweden, but I'm in the middle of Sweden. I'm calling from Stockholm, actually, today.
Cool.
So for the ones joining now, you are joining the webinar, The Future of Game Localization. People are still joining, but we'll get started in just a moment. So I'm just repeating myself for the ones joining now that you are on the Gridley's virtual launch, The Future of Game Localization. We are just waiting like 1 more minute to start, so make sure that everyone has joined. Yeah, we're just a minute or two away from starting. I'm really excited about what we're going to show you today. This release has been in the works for a very long time, so we are very eager to know what you think. And we will have a demo session on this virtual launch where we will demo the product. So to be able to do that in the best way and to customize it for all of you, it would be really helpful if you could answer the quiz if you are a Gridley customer today or not, because then we can make sure that we make the demo on the right level. So please answer the quiz or the question here, and we will make sure that we tailor the demo in the end. All right, so I think then we will just get started. So welcome everyone to our launch where we will talk about the future of game localization. My name is Anna Albinsson and I am CEO at Gridley, and I'm also your host for this webinar. So first of all, I'm so happy to have all of you here today. What we are now launching is the biggest release in Gridley's history, and we are celebrating it today by sharing insights, industry knowledge, and giving you all an exclusive first look at what is new. A few quick house rules before we begin. This webinar will run for 45 minutes. A recorded version will be available afterwards, so feel free to share it with others in your organization that couldn't make it today. We will answer questions, but we will do it in the end. And please ask your questions in the Q&A function in Zoom. It makes it easier for us to moderate the questions. The chat is also open, and here you can drop comments or share your thoughts as we go. But please use the Q&A function for the questions. So let's kick this off. Today's speakers are two well-known experts in the world of gaming and localization. It's Michael Souto and Christoffer Nilsson. Together they bring over 50 years of experience in the gaming industry, and that is pretty remarkable. But before I hand over the digital stage to them, I'd like to share a few hot topics in gaming and localization that we at Gridley are seeing and experience in our daily work. And first, perhaps not so surprising, more studios are integrating AI into their localization processes. So at Gridley, we believe that 2025 marks a turning point for AI in localization. Until now, many teams have hesitated to use AI due to concerns around context and connectivity, but that is actually starting to change for real. And if we look at some data from the Gridley platform, it's shown here on the right-hand side, it's clear that the adoption of AI features is increasing among our customers. The data shows how many of our customers that actively are using AI-powered capabilities in the localization, in their own localization workflows within Gridley. So in 2 years, that has moved from 15 to 50%. And that really shows that AI is no longer a future bet. It is, step by step, becoming a trusted part of how modern games are localized today. The second trend that we have identified is agile and continuous localization is becoming the norm. So in our decade, it's all about building for global from the beginning. Content is no longer static, it is constantly moving. And that is why localization can't be an afterthought. It has to be embedded into the development process from day one. So you are no longer localizing a finished product, you are localizing a moving target. And we can clearly see a shift in our customers' behaviors over time. Users are joining our platform earlier in the development cycle, and they are staying active for a longer period of time. And this shift, it really signals a new reality. Global readiness is no longer something that you add, it's something that you build in from the start. And that is very clear when we look into our customers' behavior. And to wrap this up, here's a third trend in game localization that we see at Gridley, and that is that scalable and automated localization infrastructure really is key. Today, gaming studios really need seamless cloud-based ecosystems where developers, translators, product owners, work in one unified flow. And I think that we all know what happens when your content lives in one place, your translations in another, and your developers maybe in a third. And that's why our customers have asked for CMS, TMS, and CAT, all in one platform. And now Gridley is there, that we're going to show you later, which makes the platform unique in gaming localization. However, the need for other integrations remain really high, and we are investing significant time and effort into meeting our customers' integration needs. So on the right, you can see the most popular integrations within Gridley right now. The game engines have been in top for a long period of time, and that is not a surprise. But right now, OpenAI is actually the fastest growing integration within Gridley today. Also a sign of that, AI is more used in localization workflows. All right, talking about AI. I would now like to hand over to the next speaker for this webinar. He has been part of more than 20 commercial video game projects, and he is one of the amazing brains behind Gridley. His experience both within games and localization, both games and localization, gives him a unique perspective. So over to you, Christoffer.
All right, well, thank you very much, Anna. And hello, everyone. I'm Chris, and I will talk about common pains and how our clients are solving them using Gridley, of course. So we always took a holistic approach to content. So we like to think of Gridley as a content ops platform. a platform that supports you from content creation all the way to publication and all the steps in between. So if we think about the life cycle of a piece of content and the processes involved, we have several steps, each spanning across different departments and different roles, sometimes even different companies, and they all use different tools and technologies. Content is exported and handed over at each step, then imported and managed in the next step, and so on. This chart is a simplified version of a flow, as in reality, content don't just travel one way. Rather, parts of the content will be sent back into earlier steps when not approved or if there is some quality issues. We also have to deal with the constant change of the source text going on, as well as new content being created and entering the process. This siloed approach introduces several pain points. There's a lack of single source of truth. Content is scattered across different systems. There's a lot of copying, pasting, exporting, and importing. And it's difficult to, at any given time, know where all your content is in this big pipeline. Errors are being made as source texts are changed and updated on content already flowing in the pipeline. Process relies on manual handovers and is slow, which can lead to delays. And now we also have the added pressure of using AI to optimize and improve our content pipeline. So our approach is to create a single platform that unifies teams and content, but keeps flexibility in integrating into the wider ecosystem that our clients use. So we have structured Gridly into 3 modules and a Gridly platform. So we have a CMS. This is where you create, organize, add metadata, automate, run approvals and QA, and finally deliver your content. The TMS is where you manage your translation process, and the CAT tool is used by translators and editors to translate the content. The Gridly platform is the underlying functionality that cuts into all these modules. And here we have translation memory, glossaries, as well as automations and integrations. So with our 2 new modules, plus the existing CMS module, Gridly spans across all the steps of a content cycle, and we have reached our goal of creating a content ops platform. This has many benefits that solves common lock pains, and here's some examples. So no single source of truth. Many of our clients had a pain point related to translation memory synchronization. And as per usual, the devil is in the details. So what would happen is a piece of content would enter the localization step, be translated. The translation would be imported back into Gridly, but also stored in the translation memory of an external TMS. When it was time for the language quality assurance step, the tester would find a mistake, fix it in the Gridly CMS to update the game and make sure and confirm that the bug was fixed. So far, all good. However, in the next iteration of the content passing through, the same translation would be found in the TMS translation memory, and the old faulty translation would come out of the localization step, overriding the previously corrected segment in Gridly, thereby reintroducing the already fixed bug. Yeah, ouch, that hurts. Now, with the Gridly platform, sharing a translation memory across all modules, the synchronization is instant in all steps, and the translation memory is automatically updated when the tester makes a change in the QA step. Fragmented content management. Another pain is that all the different systems involved in the content pipeline does not support the same type of contextual metadata. For example, it was not possible to include screenshots together with content to be translated going from the CMS into the TMS systems. Now, with all of that in one platform, that's easy peasy. Let's see if Mike can give us a glimpse of that later. Manual and repetitive work. In-game text is not the only content our clients are dealing with. We have the clients struggling with sending players push notifications across millions of devices in 15 different languages. With clever use of the Gridly API, the content could be created, organized, and translated in Gridly, and then automatically passed on to one signal for mass distribution. Before running this in Gridly, that was a pure copy-paste hell for our client. And yeah, that's not fun. Poor visibility and tracking. Change tracking is a common pain point. It gets even more complex when you try have multiple steps of dependencies, such as having audio recordings, relying on translated dialogue scripts. Developers are solving this by using dependencies in Gridly that keeps track of changes, not only between languages, but also audio files. Slow iteration and delayed releases. Teams are struggling with creating themed releases for demos and conferences. Many of our clients utilize Gridly branches to manage this, creating a unique branch tied to a release, which can then be altered without messing up the master production version. So let's move on and see what's next in the Gridly development roadmap. For the localization of content, we see 3 different types of approaches. The first 2 approaches is already functional in Gridly, and our next focus is AI. Although historically, games have had a large share of translations done manually. As LLM keeps improving, we see strong interest in fully automating translations using AI. This, of course, is a controversial topic, not only about IP rights regarding generative AI, but also the effect on all translators that are supporting the industry. And my take is that clients will be thoughtful and divide up their projects depending on quality demands and IP risks, and then use a mix of these approaches across their games. So for anyone that's been trying out ChatGPT for translations, this won't really be much of a surprise. Quality is a major concern, but improving quickly. A model will happily make up answers and hallucinate. Due to the training data, some AI models are weak in some less common languages, and sometimes old-style machine translations give superior results. Prompts also have to be tailored to specific requirements for each language. It is currently impossible to make like a one-to-rule-them-all prompt that will translate all your content across all your projects. Consistency is an issue. Although AI is stronger than machine translation regarding context, there's limitations in the context window size. And if you have a fragmented content pipeline, chances are you may not even have access to all the relevant information and data that you need to help improve consistency and context. So with the AI module, our goal is to create a technology for an AI pipeline that is highly customizable and building on the strength of having access to all this information and data that you store inside Gridly. So let's start with the multi-agent framework. To get the best out of an LLM, we found it helps breaking down complex prompts into several agents that work together, much in the same way you would break down a piece of code into several functions. This improves the output and minimizes hallucinations. We also support running LLMs from multiple foundation models, as they have their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as different cost points. And the ground is constantly changing with new models popping up at very high frequency. So moving on to dynamic prompts, prompting would be a major thing, and we plan to create a prompt editor as well as ways to organize and share prompts across your organization. We've noticed that our clients are struggling with prompts. Trying to translate a full game using just one prompt does not output good results. And the reason for this is that each target language have individual stylistic and grammar rules. A game can contain a variation of styles across its content. There's different in tones in menu item versus dialogues. And even like looking at dialogues, there's differences down to character level. So let's say you have 15 target languages running through 4 agents, then you'll have 60 prompts to manage. Maybe you have 3 different styles of content in your game, and that would be low. Then you have 180 prompts to manage. Then add in the complexity that you also want to add in additional instructions into the prompts, such as terms and glossaries, as well as context. And then manually keeping track of all those prompt variations would be near impossible. So our approach is to create a dynamic prompts that are generated for each segment, containing user-definable snippets, and also allows us to inject additional relevant information for just that specific segment. And now the cool part, the tools. So I'm really excited about this. And in Gridly, as you have all your project's content there, you have it neatly organized and grouped in folders, making it very easy to add additional instruction for the AI agents on folder level or even down on a string level. Translation memory, you have that. Glossary and terms, you have that too. If you've set up your dialogues using references to a grid with character descriptions, well, then the AI can get to that information too. So our plan is to create a set of tools that can access your gridded data. The access scope is, of course, up to you. Those tools will then feed the agents and the dynamic prompts with additional context and consistency data. This will make sure that the AI models have the most relevant information possible and thereby getting the best results out of them. Having a holistic approach and thinking wider content ops for your content solves many issues, but I think it will really shine when it comes to AI. So the next step for Gridly is a very exciting one, and we can't wait to get it into your hands and keep improving it together with you all. That's all for me. Back to you, Anna.
Well, thank you, Chris. That's really, really interesting. And just one follow-up question before we move on. You know, with the rise of AI in localization, you know, how do you see, with your experience, how do you see the role of translators in the future and maybe the impact, you know, this will have on business models in the industry?
Yeah, that's really interesting. If we manage to get these pipelines up and running and they produce quality at a high enough level to actually kind of use them in the games, then there'll be a lot of new jobs for people to come in and really help keep these pipelines going. You would need like linguists tweaking the prompts from all the different languages. You would also, as soon as there's a new foundation models or a new version, you would want to kind of go through and optimize them, make sure you get the most out of that model as well. You also need to think about organizing and storing your content in a way that the AI can actually get to the content. So I can see a rise in new jobs like multilingual prompt engineers, AI localization specialist as well. And on the business side, I guess we would move away a little bit from kind of the variable pay per word concept. And instead you'd get some more fixed cost to kind of keep this pipeline going. However, you still have some variable cost for the cost of the AI API calls. However, those costs sort of been 10x cheaper each year, so they're kind of coming down in price very, very quickly. But there will be a shift from variable cost into some fixed cost. So for organizations with large amount of content to translate, it probably makes a lot of sense to get something like this set up.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you so much, Chris. I just got notified that there are some challenges with the chat function in the Zoom channel, but the Q&A works perfectly fine. I can see that there is a lot of activity, questions going on and being answered there. So please use Q&A and not the chat function. I can also just mention that from the poll, we could see that it's about 50-50 between customers and not Gridly customers today that are joining the webinar. So we will try to make sure that everyone is understanding the demo that will soon come up. So our next speaker is Mike. He also has over 25 years of games industry experience. I mean, that is impressive. And today you're going to guide us through Gridly's release. So the floor is yours, Mike.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not muted. Great. Yes, thank you for that, Anna. Right, so I'm going to show you the latest version of Gridly. I'll be put this screen up here just initially because I will be focusing on the localization process itself, on that section that Chris showed before. So we're looking at that CMS, TMS, cat flow, and obviously referring to that fragmentation of data, making everything in one place then means that all of that data can actually be shared in a much better way. Then they're obviously looking at the different localization approaches as well that Chris mentioned before, and also seeing how that updates kind of external to Gridly and then can then feed into that process as well. Hopefully there'll be no hallucinations. Maybe just my own ones, and maybe not the AI ones. But we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to close. Okie dokie, right. Share my sound. All right. Should be able to see my screen now. Okay, so you may well have seen, this was released on Tuesday. We've got a new interface here, our dashboard. So this allows you to then see the two modules if you have those enabled. If you don't have those enabled and do want to try them out, then do let us know. If you'd like us to go through these in more detail, this will be very brief, of course, because we have limited time. We're super happy to share with you all as well. So please do let us know. So we have our modules at the top here. We've got our Gridly CMS. If you click on this, for those existing 50% of users, this will take you to the traditional Gridly interface that you'll know and love. And then we have our TMS, which will be fresh and new that you will not have seen before. What you'll also see here is we have recent links here as well. These link to not only the grids that you've recently opened, but also to the tasks that you may have as well, and then we'll come on to that as well. And then settings are over here too. So if I click on our usual, you will then see this is exactly kind of what you would expect to see. So here we have our favorites over here on the left-hand side. If I select one now, again, this is what you've seen before. So I've got my my demo view open here. This is going to what Chris mentioned before. I've actually structured the content into these folders here. So we've got just a straight machine trans and then a full translation pass as well. Although I will still be using machine for that, but just in a slightly different way. So yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this particular group here. So you'll see that this then filters down into our 6 records here. Now I have an automation in place here, which is using DeepL. And so what you can then see very quickly here is when a record's updated, or if it's manually triggered, and again, many of you will have this already working within your setups. But you will then have, so what I've set up here is it will retrieve any information or any relevant information from the translation memory, and it will place that. If there isn't anything in the translation memory, then it will then do the, if it's empty, then it will then run the DeepL, and it will then retrieve that translation into the grid. So if I come back out here, so we've got that's turned on now, and at the moment the TM is currently empty. So if I then take this particular record here, and then just add an exclamation at the end, we'll see here that there's a little icon at the top here. So the automation is doing something, and then so it's checked the TM. There's nothing in the TM, so now it's placed in an AI translation in there instead. So now that's placed that in there. What I'm going to then do is I'm going to then select these ones here. I can then right-click on these, run automations, and then I'll run DeepL here. And again, it will then do that process. We can see it's doing something here in the corner, and then it will then populate those as well. Okay, so this is good stuff. So what we've got now is we've got this, we've got our English here, we've got Spanish. Now, using the webhooks, I've actually got it speaking to this particular external website here. So here we've got blow up 500 zombies to complete the mission, which is here with the exclamation mark I added here. Now, if we change over to the Spanish version, we can then see that we've got the translations for these as well. As you can see here, we've then got all of them placed over here too. If I then come out of here, if I go over here, and I select these are currently not translated, and I'm going to send those to the TMS now. So we can see here, if we scroll down, we can see that we don't have these currently Soul Shadow, etc. These will then be placed, these translations will be placed in there. Right, okay, so what we have here is we've got these here. So these are the ones that I want to send. So what you would do is you would potentially filter on these, so you just send these. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the machine translation and the full ones all at the same time, because again, it's what you see is what you get. So because I don't have any actual filters themselves within this view, it will then push all of this content over. So at the bottom right-hand corner here, we have push to TMS. So here we have push to TMS. I will choose my English to Spanish. Again, people that have used Gridley before will know that, of course, you can have different selections here for your source. So you can have those pivot languages. So if you were starting in Chinese, Korean, or whatever it might be, but also you sometimes start with like a dev English, and then you have like a final English, and then you then go into the languages. But it just allows you, like Chris was saying before, it allows you to then structure what you want to be a dependency on what. So you might find that going from Japanese into Korean is the way you want to go, rather than going into English and then out to Korean again. So it allows you to create these pivot languages. So we're just going in a very simplistic English to Spanish. You can then choose which statuses you want to push over. I'm sending the ready for translation stuff. I can also send imagery as well, or video, or audio as well. So that then goes into the CAT interface, which allows the translators to also kind of feed into that information as well, and retrieve that information. And then I can choose if I want to send description, whatever it might be. So here we then have projects. This is all structured. Again, I won't go into any great detail. This is one that we can discuss at another point. But basically, I'm choosing a project which is set up to have a particular kind of set of specifications that I want to work towards. In this one here, I've got categories. And so categories is worth explaining a bit more about. This allows you to then structure, if you regularly have something that always goes from English into a set number of languages, you can create a category of that, so that every time you push into that one, that's already set up, that this is how you want this to work. You might have one where you're starting with Chinese and going into other languages, in which case you want that to work in a slightly different way. So you can have these categories set up for that. Then we have this one here. I'm just going to call this Mike Robo Demo New. Then we have different workflows. At the moment, I have this one set up, which is just the straight translation pass. But you can also have translation. You can have translation and proofing as well, and that sets up a different kind of workflow. Right. So I've got all my things set up here. I'm going to press push. Okay, and I'll close that, and then we'll see in the top corner here a thing will pop up here, so I can click on that, and then it will then take you to that particular task. Or you can continue working in here as you would expect, and then you can then go there later. So I'm going to just come out of here, and I'm then going to go to the then back out to the dashboard, and then I've got here, I can go to my TMS here. So I click on open. So here, this is my Mike dashboard, but you will have, there is a default one that you have. So there's a TMS dashboard, but you can create your own one. So you can then edit, and you can have all the different widgets you want. You can choose to filter and sort however you want to. You can have them placed wherever you want to within the screen as well. So I've got mine set up here with projects, categories, and jobs. And over here are the different tasks. And here we've got the Mike Robo Demo New, but here we can see the jobs down here as well. So if I select that now, open that up here. Right. So at this stage here, you can then choose to you can assign this to whoever you want to. You can choose the status. You can choose due dates. You can add all of this content. Again, well worth you having a try with this. What you can also do within this interface, so without even having to go to the CAT, you can potentially create an import, an export, and then re-import within this interface, within the TMS interface. You can also run pre-translations as well within this interface too. But what I'll do is I'll go into the actual task itself. So if I select that, this is the CAT editor, which is pretty much what one would expect to see. It's again, I won't bother going through all the different options at the top here. But again, we've got that pre-translation set up here too. What you can also see is if I select one of these, then you have an interface at the bottom here that you can work in. But over on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of other elements that one can interact with. At the bottom here, we've got then the ability here to then see these images, which is what I mentioned before. I've got to keep moving Zoom all the time. It's so annoying. Right. So yes, you can see the information that is then being pushed over from the CMS interface. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to then run this pre-translation wizard. So what's happening here is you can, again, because the TM is set up, you can then pull. What it will do is it will then check the TM first. So if this is something where you've created some amends and it may well have updated something within the TM, and you want to then mirror that into a new batch that's just come in, that because the way you can set it up within the CMS is, of course, if you then create a new record, it will automatically place a TM instance into that target language. So within the CAT here, you can then choose to pull from the TM. If there isn't TM, you can then choose to auto-translate, and there's a few selections here, which of course we will continue to expand on, but for now, I'll just use the GPT-4. You can also add context here as well, if you wish to. And this is, again, within the cat interface. And then we've got the ability to actually assign a Gridley glossary as well. So this is, again, another thing, keeping everything in one place allows all of this information to all kind of, it kind of lives on a level where all of these elements are interacted with at the same level, rather than kind of creating separate versions for each of these. And then after this, we can run a QA check after finishing that auto translation. But I'm going to go ahead and click that button here. And so what we'll see is we should have a 0 there and a 6 there. Yeah, great. Okay, so this is done. So now we have all of these filled in. You can see that these are machine translations on the side here. What you can also do is if I have a look here, if something's returned, and so again, at this point here, then, then the translators can be working in here and then amending these, and then obviously they're then confirming those segments when completed. And so, yeah, so if I remove this placeholder here at the end, okay, and if I come out of there, we'll see that automatically, this is now, it's because I've already got this registered as a tag, it's already telling me there's a tag missing here. But what I can also do is I can run the QA check over here too. So here I'll run a QA check, and this is just a very simplistic check. It's found a spelling error, and it's found that the target is not found. Sorry, the tag is not found in the target as well. So again, so it's pulling out these elements as well. So you can really kind of check exactly what's happening before returning the content. Oh, I think it's that one, or maybe it's not. Oh, it's got caps on, I think. Oh, why does it keep doing that? That's annoying. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, so now that that's done there, I can now get rid of this. Go back to this image here. So this is now a different image that's obviously selected there. So yeah, so now we have that. Now we can then push that back into Gridley. So we're going to complete segments here. So what I'll do is I'll complete that just to make this move along quicker. Okay, so I can close that now. These are all completed. If I now come out, I can then go back into my, well, you can do it through the dashboard if you want to, of course, as well. So here we've got Microbo demo. I select that job again. And again, so this is now saying it's now 100% complete. Obviously, the status would need to be updated, etc. And then I'll deliver that job now. So now this is now going back into Gridley, into the CMS rather. So now I can select that up there, or I can go back through through this way, go back through a recent if you wish. But if I just go into it the long way, we'll see here. So Microbo demo. So again, we've now got the 6 that we had before, and then we've got these 6 that are yet to be delivered. So what I then do is I go down to the push to TMS that we used before, and then we look at the pending deliveries over here. So we'll see here. Now this is structured to work in the way that you want it to work. So at the moment, you can, if you want to, you can auto import it, and it will import using the settings that you have decided you want. So you can choose that, if something changes in the meantime when something's out, they're kind of the traditional, if something changes within the English, then it will flag that as being an issue. If something's had a translation memory instance inserted in there, it will also alert you to those types of things. So again, all of these settings can be structured how you want them structured. I've set it up really nice and basic, so I can click on this auto import. And so what it should then do is it should then update over here. Or if I pressed it properly. Oh, did I press deliver job? Oh, I'm not sure if I did. Oh no, I must have done. Okay, well, let's give that a second to refresh. So yes, so am I in the right one? Yes, I am. Let me just have another quick look at this. Okay, this was working 2 minutes before doing this with you guys. Okay, let me just move on. Oh, here we go. Aha! It's this is, hey, everyone's been there, right? Good. So right, here we go. So if I then, so we can see here, this is now updated here. If we go over to the site that I mentioned before, we can see that these are now being placed here. Now again, this whole kind of consistency thing is now if I then change if one of the LQA linguists is kind of looking in here and then decides, actually, I want, in this particular instance, I want that to not have an S, and I want to change that to an I. Now that's being ingested into the TM. So now if I create another record here, and I say it's the same one here, then it will then give me that. So this is now inserting a TM reference here, rather than an AI one like it did before, because what it did was it noticed that there was a TM entry for this, placed the TM entry, and because it was full, then it didn't then pass it on to the machine translation side of things. So it already kind of found it there. So yes, so there we go. So that was all of those things there. I wanted to show you that. I wanted to show you that, and I've shown you all those things. Right.
Thanks, Mike.
I shall bail now.
Yeah, really, really, really good. And I hope, that this demo gave you all a better understanding of how you can push content, from your grids in Gridly to the new TMS, where you can break it down into tasks for translators to work on. And then, once translations are completed, it's single click, it delivers them back to your grid. No emails, no import, export, just, a smooth localization process in one platform. All right, let's deep into the Q&A session. There has been a lot of things going on in the Q&A. It's very, thanks for all the engagement. We will answer all questions. We will not be able to take everyone live, but I see that, many experts from Gridly are working on answering all your questions. But let's bring the first question up here for you, Mike and Chris. The first question, we want to start improving our localization workflow, add automation and such. Where do we start? Do we have a recommendation for that, Mike?
Yes, I could certainly have a look at that. So basically, you will start. I mean, it depends on what kind of start point you're at. If you have a file already, those files can be very easily imported into the Gridly interface. If you have something that's already completed, you could potentially upload that file into the TMS if you wanted to, and then from the TMS, then you can then work on that as a kind of solid finished file, and then obviously you could translate that then using the CAT, or you could create an export of that if you wanted to. Certainly, I think if you've got text that's flexing, it's still not yet complete, then the CMS really makes tons of sense, because then that really does track exactly what's happening, and you can then be updating content on the fly from Unreal or whatever it might be. But it would be interesting to know then, Simon, what is that kind of start point? Is everything in Unity, for example? And then we can then point out the best way. Maybe the Unity plugin is the way you want to go, and then you can then push that in, and then improve from that point there, and then you can then have all the kind of checks and balances in there afterwards.
All right, thanks. Let's move on to the next question. What is the best way to organize your content in Gridly if we want to keep the structure as clean and simple as possible?
Yes, I'll grab that as well, if that's
Okay.
right. Yeah. So there's loads of different types of columns that you can create. Some of them can be single select, multi-select, etc. So you can have a lot of data that occupies that content. So you can then differentiate if something is for a particular platform or whatever it might be. So you can have these different types of columns. Of course, you then have the folder structure, which I showed a second ago, and Chris mentioned earlier. And that really allows you to very much structure it in a folder structure, as one would expect. So if you imagine like a Google Sheet or an Excel file where you've got the tabs, then that's great. But it's then having all those sub tabs that you could then really kind of say, right, well, this is weapons, for example, but then you can then break it down into even further levels there. So certainly I think the folder structure, and also the ability to have loads of different types of columns, and of course there's branches as well. So you've got loads of branches in Gridly, so this allows you to then work on siloed versions, as Chris mentioned before. The ability to work on a vacation one, or if it's a particular release that uses the same ID, depending on when that's actually being released, you can work on those totally siloed. So that allows you to organize in that way as well. I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that, Chris.
No, that's a good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Basically, I guess I can add, if depending on the structure of your data, and if the structure is the same, you can put it into the same grid and then use different folders to organize it within the grid. If you have multiple different data types, or let's say data sheets with different columns, you would put them in different grids.
really good. Okay, we have time for one more question. Also, we are working with freelance translators and would like to start using AI more. How can we combine human and AI translation working with our translators within Gridly? Would you like to start, Chris, or?
You go for that
All
one.
right, yeah, sure. So I guess one thing to start to consider is if you're just gonna have you're gonna do AI translations and just use them as they are, or if you're gonna have a proofreading step. So you think about what process you want. If you want to have a proofreading step, you would then invite the translators into the CAT tool to do the proofreading from there. You can also set up a mix, so using folders or different views to organize your grids for different approaches. So if you're having pure AI translations, no testing, you could arrange a grid view only for that, and another grid if you want to do proofreading, or even another grid if you want to do human translation.
All right.
So actually different views inside the same
Right, yeah,
grid.
exactly.
With the
All
other
right,
questions,
yeah,
sorry, Anna,
yeah.
with the other questions, are we able to maybe take those questions and then answer them separately and maybe share them as part of the video sharing?
Yeah, so we will make sure. We completely underestimated the number of questions in the Q&A today. We could have had like 45 minutes Q&A session, it seems like. But we are more than happy to answer your questions, and we will make sure that all the questions get answered and shared with each and every one of you. But if you want to know more, if we look at, I think we have some email addressing and how you can, book your demo, Chris, on the next slide. If anyone is interested in doing that, you can just send us an email, or we can have a personalized demo or a personalized Q&A. So drop a line in the Q&A, we will reach out to you, or you can send an email to team@gridly.com. We also have a 14-day trial on gridly.com. So we will now take care of all questions. We promise to answer every question and distribute it to you. And thanks for your really, really high engagement. Thank you also for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.